Is this the year that Apple finally gets serious about the smart home? If you look at the HomePod with the screen rumors and some of the other news out there, you would say yes. But if you look at their recent Worldwide Developer Conference, the answer would be no. They basically didn't mention anything about Apple Home. There are some great updates coming to the iPad, iPhone, Mac, Watch, Vision Pro, CarPlay, you name it. But the home, nothing. Now, if you want to see the updates to those other devices, I did make a video that I'll put down in the description and at the end of this one. And it's definitely worth checking out. The only thing home-related Apple talked about was the Apple TV. And there are some updates to that. And there's actually one nice update that I really appreciate, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But when it comes to HomePods, there's nothing there. But it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Even though Apple didn't talk about Apple Home, there are some new rumors out there and a developer tool called Interactive Snippets, along with a couple other things that point to possibly being a HomePod with a screen in the fall. Before we talk about that stuff, let's talk about what's new with the Apple TV. First off, they're changing the OS to tvOS 26. They're going with a year-based naming for all the operating systems now. And like the other operating systems, the big thing is the new liquid glass redesign. It makes menus and buttons and different things that pop up have more of a glass-like look to it. There's also a new redesign to the layout of like the Home app. You'll see vertical posters, so you can actually fit more of them on the screen at any given time. The redesign with the layout and the liquid glass gives a more modern look to the operating system. When it comes to new features added, there is a new AirPlay feature which allows you to connect to a AirPlay to a speaker and make that a continuous connection so that anytime you turn it on, it uses that speaker. There are some FaceTime improvements where you'll get incoming call notifications and contact posters so you can see who's calling, and live subtitles. For the smart home, the Apple TV will support Thread 1.4. The benefit of Thread 1.4, one of the biggest ones, is that the way it works now is pretty much any Thread border router, let's say an Echo, it'll create its own Thread network. And then a HomePod will create its own Thread network. And it's kind of a pain. Now, with 1.4, devices will join existing Thread networks, so you don't have multiple ones running simultaneously. That is huge. Another Apple TV update that I'm sure everybody's going to use, it's being able to take your phone and use the microphone on it for karaoke on your Apple TV. That's right. Karaoke. Now, an update that I think people will actually use has to do with profiles. Currently, with an Apple TV, you have to either ask to switch profiles or you have to go into the menu and select which profile you want to use. With tvOS 26, when you turn on the TV, you get the option to select whatever profile you want, which is great. I love it because in my house, we all have our own profile set up. And if you're not using profiles, you really should. It is a great way to separate out everybody's content. It makes the TV app so much more useful when you have just your show showing up. That, to me, is the best feature coming to the Apple TV. It really is a year of minor upgrades at this point. Next, let's talk about HomePods and Apple Home in general. Apple announced nothing new. I did make a video of expected upgrades to the HomePod Mini and the full-size HomePod. I also covered the rumors for the HomePod with a screen. So if you want to check that out, I'll put the link to that in the description, and I'll put it at the end of this video. Now, if you haven't heard about the HomePod with a screen, the rumors point to a 7-inch HomePod with a screen on it. It would have a camera for FaceTime. You could watch content and use Apple apps. During their developer conference, Apple didn't share any news about any new features coming to HomePods, and they didn't mention the new rumored HomeOS. Now, there was some hope hoped that HomeOS would be announced so that developers could start creating apps for it. That's what they did with the Vision Pro when it first was announced. They shared that at the developer conference so that developers could start writing apps for the Vision Pro. So when it finally was released in January, there'd be some stuff that goes with it. Apple didn't mention anything about HomeOS or new features coming to the HomePods, but they did have a developer session about interactive snippets. And these interactive snippets, I didn't know about them until I saw an article from a 9to5Mac that was titled, "Is Apple's WWDC 25 Interactive Snippets Session Secretly About the HomePad?" So after reading that, I went and checked out the developer session and watched the 7.5-minute video about it. And if you listen to the language they used, it does lean towards a nice, simplified, interactive widget sort of thing that sounds like it would work well with a HomePad. Now, using Apple's summary of the event, I want to point out a couple things that they said. Snippets are compact views which appear in Spotlight, Siri, and Shortcut apps. They are made with app intents and display updated information and allow people to perform quick actions directly from the snippet without leaving their current context. Something else Apple says is the snippets are designed for quick, in-the-moment use, so their content must be clear and concise. To achieve this, a larger type size is used to draw attention to important information, and ample spacing is employed to avoid clutter. Now, the thing that makes it sound like this would be good for a smart display is the use of vibrant backgrounds can make snippets stand out, but you must use them carefully with high contrast to ensure readability, especially from a distance. So, especially from a distance, and simple, easy to use. Do you really need something that is easy to use from a distance on your phone, your Mac, or your iPad? Apple also says due to the limited space of these snippets that the content should be kept short, so there's no scrolling. And if more information is needed, you would click on the snippet and it would take you to the larger version of it. These snippets can just show you information or they can be interactive. So if it is something that you need to confirm or cancel something, the option could be there. Now, these interactive snippets sound like something that could be useful across any of the Apple devices. And one thing I learned from this year's developer conference is Apple has really gone above and beyond with putting features on all their devices. Widgets are available here. They're now available on everything. Live translations aren't limited to a phone or an iPad. They're on your Mac. They're on FaceTime with the Apple TV. They're doing a good job at really unifying the operating system. So it would make sense to see these snippets across all their devices, including a smart display. Now, another thing pointing to a new Apple smart display was some code found in the beta version of 18.6. I didn't know about this until I read an article from 9to5Mac called iOS beta code includes new reference to Apple's upcoming smart display. In this article, they talk about a new line of code that was found within the beta version of iOS 18.6. And in that, there is a reference to the Apple logo with a number at 2 times squiggly home.png. Now, that line of code means nothing to me, but they explained in the article that Apple has these lines of code. For example, there's an Apple-logo-2532, which refers to the resolution of the iPhone 13 and iPhone 14. Now, what that 1088 means with the 2 times is that it will apply to a device that has a resolution of 2,176 pixels wide. And none of the other Apple devices have that yet. The other thing that it points to a home display is the reference to home. That resolution is very similar to the iPad mini. And with that reference to home, it points to an iPad with a screen. So we'll see if that happens. Another thing that points to an Apple Home upgrade and possibly to a HomePod with the screen is a new operating system called HomeOS. Now, to register trademarks, Apple's been known to use shell companies to hide that they're doing these registrations. In October of last year, they actually registered in Liechtenstein. I know I'm saying that wrong. They registered for the trademark of HomeOS. And in April of this year, they registered in the United States, Argentina, and Peru for a trademark of HomeOS. Now, the trademark they did, and I didn't know about this before, there's trademark classes. There's class 009, which is a brother of 007. That's so stupid. But class 009 is a trademark for software and downloadable apps. There's also class 042, which is software services and development tools. Maybe this Home Operations Suite LLC has nothing to do with Apple at all, and it's not one of their shell companies, and they just want the Home OS. Or it could be a sign that in the fall, we finally get to see Home OS and the rumored HomePod with a screen. The HomePod with the screen is supposedly will be going into mass production soon, so that in theory, it's ready for the fall. But unfortunately, we haven't seen any leaked pictures of anything yet. We only have these kind of rumors to go on. So what do you think? Is Apple going to finally release a HomePod with a screen? Are they finally going to take the smart home seriously? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Now, if you made it this far and you haven't, please consider subscribing to check out the next video. And if you can, give this one a like. It definitely helps the channel out. Thanks for watching. Bye.